Yo, dudes, the Empire's pretty chill. Maybe you could, join it or something.
Hey everyone, Lucamus Prime here. So, it's time for another review today in the Terminator franchise. And guys, I'm going to be reviewing the third installment of the Terminator franchise. And this movie is of course, as suggested by it being the third installment, known as Terminator 3 Rise of the Machines, released in 2003. So yeah, now guys, I'm going to be honest and say this movie, directed by Jonathan Mostow, released on June the 30th and July the 2nd, 2003, is probably an example of an unnecessary sequel, because in my opinion the franchise perfectly ended with Terminator 2, especially the extended version of the movie. But in my opinion this movie is actually quite an underrated action movie, because when I was younger I used to, really not like this movie at all, to be honest. When I was much younger, had lots of issues with it. But guys, after several rewatches as I've got older and older, I actually think this movie is not as bad as I used to think it was, or as other critics have said about it. And I've grown to appreciate it, especially compared to two garbage sequels which came out in 2015 and 2019 respectively. And yeah, and I think it's an underrated movie. The same thing could be applied to the next movie I'll be reviewing in this franchise, Terminator Salvation. But yeah, so on to this movie. So what is Terminator 3 Rise of Machines about? So as a bit of a quick synopsis, guys. Now at the age of 25, John Connor lives with no record of his existence. No way he can be traced by Skynet. Out of the shadows of the future steps the TX, Skynet's most sophisticated cyborg killing machine yet. Now, John Connor's only hope for survival is the Terminator, his mysterious former assassin. Together, they must triumph over the technologically superior TX and forestall the looming threat of Judgment Day. So that's a basic summary of the movie, guys. Now, so like I said before, I don't consider this movie to be an awful movie, to be honest, but still an unnecessary sequel, because in my opinion, it undoes the perfect ending of Terminator 2. So yeah. And so, let's get through a good quality of the movie first, guys. So yeah. Now, so a good quality we'll say is that the movie has pretty good acting by the cast. So, for example, obviously I do once again love the legendary Arnold Schwarzenegger as the Terminator. And I do like how this time he's playing a brand new Terminator, which is not a T-800 but a T-850. And the reason why he's different to a T-800 is because while he's the same model, he's got hydrogen fuel cells inside his endoskeleton. So yeah, which increases his power supply. So yeah, and in my opinion, he still was great in the role, really great, one of the main highlights of the movie. Because in my opinion, Arnie is never a problem in any of the Terminator movies, even the ones which I do hate, which are of course the two abominable sequels, which I just mentioned. And yeah, he was probably one of the best highlights of the movie. Even though they did give him some questionable characterization with him made a Terminator be a bit campy and do some strange things, which means a bit comedic. But yeah, he was still really amazing in the role, and yeah. I also as well definitely love the addition of a new villain called the TX, played by Kristanna Loken. And I like how they were innovative in making her different to the previous two villains, which were of course a T-800 in the first movie, and in the second movie was T-1000. I like how they made the TX basically a combination of both those characters, where it's an endoskeleton with liquid metal around it, and it has built-in weaponry. So I do like how they made the TX different to the first two antagonists, I guess. And she was really great in the role, Kristanna Loken. It's probably my favourite role of her. It's probably the only role I've seen of her, but yeah. She was really amazing in the role, and she really nailed it as a TX. She was really great in the role. And yeah. So, other good quality I will say is, I also really like the addition of Claire Danes as Catherine Brewster, who is the future wife of John Connor. I thought she was really great in the role, and she's probably as well my second favourite female character in the franchise after Sarah Connor, in my opinion. And I consider this to be Claire Danes' best role as well, because, I mean, the only role I've seen of her beside this movie is probably Juliet in Baz Luhrmann's Room on Juliet movie, which I personally don't like, guys. But in my opinion, this is probably her best role, because I thought she played the role really well with the direction she was given. And yeah. And I like how in a similar development she went with Sarah in the first movie. She starts out as being really afraid of a Terminator, and then at the end she becomes a warrior in a way who fights them, as shown by her taking down one of the drones with an assault rifle. And John Connor even says that she reminds him of his mother. So yeah. I also like the addition as well of David Andrews as Robert Brewster, who is Kate's father. I thought he was a very good character as well, guys, and yeah. And he played his part really well. And yeah. Now, I'm going to talk about John Connor, guys, who is played by Nick Stahl, not Edward Furlong, because the thing is, Edward was going to return at first, but he had to drop out due to a substance abuse issue, so yeah, he got replaced by Nick Stahl. And I will agree with some critics that Nick Stahl does give quite a bland performance for most of the movie as John. Yes, I definitely do agree with that, because in many areas he does sound bland, but in my opinion, it's understandable why John is so miserable in the movie, because he's lived in quite a depressing lifestyle where he's lived as a nobody who has no home, no job, nothing. He lives all alone, and yeah, living off the grid. So I can understand why he sounds so miserable all the time, really. And however, there is actually an example of a scene where Nick Stahl did actually show great acting as John, which I'll get to when talking about the ending of the movie. So yeah. And I also as well like the addition of Mark Famiglietti as Scott, who is Kate's fiance. And yeah, he was good with his scenes, although he didn't have much screen time because the TX kills him to disguise herself as him to ambush Kate. But yeah. And so yeah. And I also did love as well, guys, how we even got a cameo appearance by Earl Bowen as Dr. Silberman, which I was happy about. I like how they included a connection to the first two films by having him appear. Even though it's only a cameo appearance, this makes Earl Bowen the only actor besides Arnie to be in all three of the original trilogy for Terminator movies, which is pretty cool. And this was also his final film in live action before he went on to solely do voice acting, guys. So yeah. But he was still very good in his one scene with Kate, but it would have been cool if he had more screen time, though. But it was nice to see him, though, talking to her. And yeah. And it was also cool how he recognised the Terminator and he ran away in fear. But yeah, I wish we got more of him. But yeah, nonetheless, it was nice to see Earl Bowen return as him. And yeah, so all good quality was besides the cast is, I do also as well like the action of the movie. Like, in my opinion, the action is very good. And yeah, definitely, feels like a Terminator movie because of the action. It's pretty good. Although, I will say that I didn't really like how, because the movie was rated PG-13, if I remember correctly, or was it, I think, I didn't really like how they toned down many of the violence in the movie, which is disappointing, in my opinion. Like, because personally, I didn't really like how they toned it down, because it doesn't really make it like a Terminator movie. Yeah, it's rated R, guys, but the violence is very toned down. Like, it's way less dark than the first two movies. Although there is probably an example of a gruesome kill scene, which probably could make it suitable for an R rating, which is the scene where TX, disguised as Scott, plunges her hand right through a policeman in the police car. That's probably an example of a very gory scene. Yeah. So I can understand why it'd be R rated, but besides that, there's not really very much go after that. Apart from, the scene, of course, where Arnie is set on fire by TX, and yeah, which is pretty disturbing, seeing him get set on fire. But yeah, and all good quality, I will say, I did also love the music as well, the movie, which was composed by Marco Beltrami, even though I do strongly prefer Brad Fiddel's music from the first two movies. And yeah, and plus as well, another good quality I will say, guys, is, even though this movie, in my opinion, is still pretty much almost a rehash of Terminator 2's plot, and the first movie's plot, I do like how this movie did something differently to the first two by including, a much more different ending, because I did like how, instead of it giving us a happy ending, this time the villains win. I did like that twist where it's revealed that the villain wins this time. So yeah, I did like how he did that, and like I said before about talking about Nick Stahl's acting, in my opinion, his acting when John realises there's nothing in the bunker to stop Skynet was there, and he has a breakdown and gets really upset. That, in my opinion, was perfectly acted, guys. And yeah, and And in my opinion, the scene where John accepts that who is destined to be being the leader of resistance is a very powerful scene. Like, it's just so chilling when you think about it, guys. You know, like, the ending, in my opinion, while it is heartbreaking and depressing, is very powerful, where it shows John accepting his destiny of becoming the leader of resistance. And yeah. So these are reasons why, guys, I don't think it's an awful movie, and that's why I think it's an underrated movie. Because, like I said, guys, I used to not like it when I was younger. Like, I thought it was disappointing compared to the first two, because I thought it was just way too similar to the first two. But I've grown to appreciate it a lot more over time, because I don't think it's as bad as I used to. Singing Creepy Heart of Salvation. And, however, guys, despite all good qualities, there are some bad qualities, I will say. So, yeah. Like, I definitely would agree, like I said, that this movie has way too many plot lines which are far too familiar to Terminator 2. For example, the Terminator, when he first appears, he gets claws from a bar, like in Terminator 2. Or the circumstance is different because he doesn't get it from a person playing on a snooker table or pool or whatever sport it was. He instead gets it from someone who's doing a dance in front of an audience. So yeah, in a bar which has a ladies' night. So yeah. So I like how he did that differently to Terminator 2's bar scene. But yeah. And it was pretty funny how a Terminator wore those party glasses before putting on some proper sunglasses. Although it made it a bit comical in my opinion, which felt really out of place in a Terminator movie. And yeah. And plus the idea of protecting John Connor from Judgment Day is just like Terminator 2, guys. But yeah. But like I said before, I do like how they changed the plot to make the villain win this time. How Skynet actually won. So yeah. Like I was thinking, you know, oh no, are they going to copy Terminator 2 by making him win again? But this time he didn't win. Instead, while John survived the Judgment Day attacks, instead, you know, the villain still won. Judgment Day happened. So yeah. And also, when other bad quality will say, guys, is, you know how I said that in my opinion, it undoes Terminator 2's perfect ending, yeah. I think the main problem with the movie is that it completely negates the plot, story, and the ethos of the previous movie of Terminator 2 Judgment Day, because it changes the iconic line said by the characters, which is, there is no fate but what we make for ourselves, into Judgment Day is inevitable, said by the T-850. And it renders all of the struggles, sacrifices, and victories, all the hell the characters went through in Terminator 2, pointless, meaningless. So yeah, like, I really hate how they just, you know, ruined the ending of the previous movie, like, because Terminator 2 is one of my favourite sequels of all time, my favourite action movie, and they ruined the whole meaning of it by doing this movie. The filmmakers seem clueless to this idea, and yeah, goodness me. And yeah, and plus, when it comes to Sarah Connor, guys, as well, I've already touched on this in my ranking for Terminator films that I did back in 2020, even my ranking has changed. And I will say that I personally did not like how they killed her off-screen from leukemia. Like, in my opinion, that was pretty bad closure for her character. But yeah, I at least was glad they didn't include her in the story, because in my opinion, Terminator 2 Judgment Day perfectly closed her story. Then again, it closed the entire franchise, but yeah. So I'm glad they didn't include her, because in my opinion, they closed her story well with Judgment Day. But, in my opinion, she did not deserve to be killed off. They should have just retired her character and let her live in peace, you know? Like, that was disappointing, in my opinion, how they killed her off-screen from leukemia, of all things. Oh my god. Like, what a poor send-off to one of the most iconic characters in cinematic history, and probably one of my favourite female characters ever. Like, oh my goodness. Like, oh man. Like, I can't believe they had to kill off Sarah like that, you know? Disappointing. That's probably one of my main quality with the movie, aside from the fact that it's a rehash of Terminator 2 and it makes it unnecessary. And the quote, which I said before about, you know, Judgment Day is inevitable, that line basically makes the fact that Miles Dyson has died for nothing, yeah. It creates the fact that he died for no reason, because he died ensuring that Cyberdyne will be destroyed to prevent Skynet from being created in the first place. And look what happened, it got created in this movie. So yeah, it made his sacrifice meaningless. And I hated that. He died for no reason. Goodness me. So yeah. Like, and it makes, you know, all the effort that John, Sarah, and the original under Terminator went through to stop Judgment Day meaningless, because it happened again. And they couldn't stop it this time. So yeah. Another quote I will say, guys, is I also didn't like as well how it was pretty campy. Like, for example, wearing the sunglasses, which are like party sunglasses, and also as well Arnie saying "talk to the hand." Like, really? Like, is that probably a sign of a Terminator trying to be human or something? Goodness me. Speaking of Terminator acting like a human, guys, what's also weird is the TX does some things which is quite human despite being a robot. For example, when the TX discovers that John is here, when it detects his presence, it makes like a gasp. You're like, and like I'm thinking, what? You're not human. You're a robot. Why are you showing emotion? Goodness me. Like, what is she supposed to be? Human? She's not human. Goodness me. Like, it's just pretty confusing. And yeah. But yeah. And also, another quote I will say, guys, with regards to a movie, is that, I feel like the new characters, you don't really get to know them quite well. I feel like they're brought out of nowhere. Like, it's pretty confusing, really. So, like, Claire Danes as Kate Brewster, for example, while she was great in the role, I feel like her character needed better development and better, background. So, yeah. Because she was never mentioned by name at all in the first two movies. So, yeah. I mean, there's a character who appears in Terminator 2 as a little girl who gives T-1000 directions to where John could be. And that's been rumored to be her. And it probably is her, maybe, but yeah. And also, as well, we never even got to see General Brewster in the previous movies either, sadly. And also, when it comes to my issues with regards to deleted scene, there is one deleted scene that I wish was in the theatrical version, which is how they explain the origin of the Terminator and why it looks like Arnie. Because there's a deleted scene, guys, which shows the Terminator's model is based on a soldier called William Candy. And they actually made the humour fit really well in this scene because it's revealed that the Sergeant Candy doesn't sound anything like Arnie. He's got a southern accent, which is nothing like Arnie's Austrian accent. And then a scientist played by Jack Norsworthy turns to a character who says he doesn't like the accent, and he says, "We can fix it." And yeah, as a setup of him being the voice of a Terminator, so yeah. And he was also Arnie, by the way, guys, so yeah. Jack Norsworthy character, so yeah. Like, I wish it didn't come out that scene because it would have given the movie much more depth and would have been a really cool scene to show to explain why the Terminators all look like Arnie, the T-800s, Model 101. And yeah. And also, when it comes to the military base in the movie, guys, what's confusing is they never show like any establishing shots of it. They don't like clarify where it is, CIS. So like they should have like explained where it is. But yeah, they never did. They never confirmed where it is because they had no establishing shots of it. So yeah. Which was quite disappointing, really. And yeah. Yeah, CRS it is. Yeah, CRS. And also, however, when it comes to good qualities, guys, one thing I will say is probably the makeup is good for the Terminator. Like, I think the makeup gives Arnie was really good, especially in his final scene in the movie where, half of his face is burned off by the fire and, he's got the endoskeleton visible. So, yeah. Like, that was probably, very great makeup in my opinion. I think they probably used was a bit of CGI as well. And, yeah. And I will say that, his final conversation with Tate was also really good as well. How he was able to use his last hydrogen fuel to destroy them both. And, yeah. And his last line, which is, "You are terminated," was like a nice reference to Sarah Connor's line to the original T-800 in the first movie when she killed it. So, yeah. And, so like I said, guys, despite its bad quality of the movie, and I think it's unnecessary movie because it makes Mel Dyson's sacrifice pointless, and it makes the effort to stop Judgment Day pointless, but yeah. It's still, in my opinion, a good movie, an underrated action movie, but still unnecessary sequel, so yeah. Now, if you guys are wondering what I'll give a movie out of 10, well, guys, just like in my franchise ranking that I did back in 2020, I think it might be the same if I remember correctly, but yeah, I'm going to check right now for you guys to see if it's the same or not, but yeah. So if I was to rank this movie out of 10, guys, I don't give it 10 out of 10 because of the issues I have with it, because those issues I have prevented me getting 10 out of 10. compared to the first two movies, which in my opinion are masterpieces. Even though the second movie, in my opinion, is the best one. So if I was from this movie out of 10, I would give this movie an 8 out of 10. So yeah, a good movie, but an unnecessary sequel in my opinion, guys. So yeah, so if I had to rank it, guys, 8 out of 10. So guys, this is me reviewing Terminator 3 Rise of Machines, directed by Jonathan Mostow. So you know, drill, guys. Be sure to give this video a like. Also, be sure to comment what you guys think of Terminator 3 reviews and what your thoughts are on it. Also, be sure to join Team Prime by pressing subscribe for movies in the future. If you'd like to be a member, you can press join, get all the description. And hasta la vista, baby.